Flatliners is one of those 90s studio movies that was chock full of talent, the likes of which you generally don't see today in what would be considered a pretty standard thriller. Directed by Joel Schumacher, whose resume would be the envy of any other Hollywood director. Shot by Jan de Bont, one of the premier cinematographers of the 80s and 90s. Scored by James Newton Howard, who's composed some of the most memorable film scores, and with a cast that reads like a who's who of Hollywood talent. The filmmakers and actors behind Flatliners injected the film with a kind of reverence and respect that seemed a bit unusual for such a gimmicky thriller. All the acting and visual choices were an exercise in how to successfully cultivate and present a theme so that it rises above and becomes something greater. The movie has a pretty simple premise. A group of medical students dare to try and cheat death, but unresolved demons they've chosen to ignore come back to haunt them. Death is something most people don't want to think about. It's an uncomfortable subject and conjures up all kinds of scary, dark things our minds don't want to deal with. These thoughts and the bowels of darkness they implicate are projected through the movie's clever design scheme. This design scheme is evident from the very beginning. In fact, it's the most striking thing about Flatliners, communicating a very somber and ceremonial tone that acts to enlighten the audience about death as an important part of existence. The filmmakers utilize these ideas from the very opening shots of religious monuments, and then with a godlike moving point of view over the water and toward the city. The color palette is downright apocalyptic and makes the city seem like it is on the precipice of doom. Even the hospital seems like the bowels of a religious temple than the sterile, neutral look of most hospitals. This is a place almost no one would want to spend a significant amount of time. And yet, what initially seems like an odd design choice reveals itself as a perfect metaphor for the film's themes. The neutral, sterile look and feel of your average hospital acts to take people's minds off the very thing that hovers over the proceedings: death. Many people there are on death's doorstep, and yet the look of their surroundings doesn't encourage them to take a look under the hood of their minds and deal with the unresolved issues that have plagued them their entire lives. The thematic idea of confronting these dark and scary situations is something the hospital design in Flatliners perfectly encapsulates. This design scheme also becomes the de facto way in which the characters begin to see the rumblings of their haunted past. A past hell-bent on presenting unfinished business. Jan de Bont's cinematography, though dank, grungy, and borderline threatening, is also hauntingly beautiful in these sequences. It really highlights the tug-of-war between light and darkness the characters are struggling with. The past deeds that haunt the characters aren't anything complex, but it's the way in which these sequences are handled that make them compelling. They're wonderfully shot, but most of all, they're wonderfully acted. And it's the acting that makes these scenes work. Kiefer Sutherland, besides being one of the major faces of 80s and 90s Hollywood, is a fantastic actor, and he injects the character of Nelson with an arrogance and unhinged quality, but you still like him. He has principles, and Sutherland has a boyish charm mixed with a kind of intensity that made him perfect for characters like this. William Baldwin, too, has a boyish charm, and he's an actor that's mostly coasted on good looks, but like most major Hollywood stars of this era, the camera just loves him. He radiates an effortless star quality that livens up the depressing subject matter. He handles Dr. Hurley's struggles with sexual desire and the exploitation of women with enough pathos to make a compelling watch. Kevin Bacon is one of the most prolific character actors and can seemingly bend to whatever the needs of the role are. He lends his rock-solid talent to things, and his rendition of Labratio as a skeptic that slowly has his mind changed is what the plot hinges on. Julia Roberts, the it girl of the 80s and 90s, always brings a thoughtful and inspired quality to the parts she plays. Flatliners is no different. She is the femininity in a very male-dominated cast, bringing a level of cool and collectedness to what is undoubtedly a very testosterone-laden environment, and she handles her hallucinations and dealings with her traumatic past with her usual excellent acting prowess. Oliver Platt rounds out the cast, and not to be outdone, brings his considerable energetic wit and high acting IQ. There are some cathartic character arcs that come out of these hallucinations. Schumacher and de Bont bring some incredible visual panache to these moments. A lot of information about the urgency of these visions is communicated purely visually. Little to no dialogue is necessary to give us a clear idea of the power of these sequences, and what initially seemed to be a movie about death reveals itself as a meditation on life and the human struggle. Flatliners was a lot better than it had any right being, and while the film had mixed reviews upon release, the remake, 27 years later, was unanimously panned by critics and audiences. The less said about it, the better, and it only serves to highlight the superiority of the original film. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like and subscribe button, as I'll be posting more content in the future. Thanks for watching.